In this video, we're going to jump in and show you how to set up a survey in SurveyEngine. I'll assume you've already registered or logged in and you're staring at the dashboard screen. So SurveyEngine is normally designed for choice and conjoint experiments, but today we'll use it to create a simple customer satisfaction survey. It'll be a little bit like using a gold-plated hammer to bang in a nail, but you'll get the point. This is the dashboard, and it's a summary of the current status of all your studies. You can create a survey here or import one that you've saved offline or downloaded from our tutorials. You can also import and export entire surveys as Excel spreadsheets. This is pretty useful if you want to create your surveys offline using some sort of automated method or some sort of offline database like a product or medications database. So what we're going to do is to start with a blank survey rather than jump into an existing tutorial. So you create a survey with this button here on the top right. So in a typical survey data collection, there are three phases. The editing phase, where you're building your survey and getting it looking right and getting the logic right. Then there's the data collection phase, and then finally there's the results and downloading the data. And the user interface is organized around those three phases. And the first screen you'll see is the page editor. This is the screen that you'll probably spend most of your time on. On this screen, you can create pages, place questions, text, and logic within those pages. So you start with 4 blank pages. You can always add more or delete them. For the purposes of this example, let's imagine that we are running a pizza restaurant and we'd like to do some simple market research and put the link on our Facebook page. So if I did actually own a pizza parlor, I wouldn't do customer satisfaction this way, but it's a simple enough example to understand the main mechanics of building a survey. So we'll start by putting some text, an introduction, and some simple questions on the first page. So let's put, "Welcome to Pompey's Pizza Survey. Your feedback is important to us." And let's put a first question. "When did you last order a pizza from Pompey's? This week, about a month ago, 3 months ago, a year ago, more than a year, or never?" On the next page, we'll have a typical 5-point rating scale for various attributes of our service and products. So let's make it, "How happy were you with?" And then we have a series of repeated questions. Price, taste, quality, temperature, range of toppings, and delivery. Now we're using a matrix question here, and this allows for a structured question that's got the same number of levels. And let's make it 5 levels plus a not applicable. So perhaps they didn't take delivery. And then our third page, put a thank you. And let's say we decide we want to collect their email addresses as well. So we'll put an open question here, and we will make sure it's short enough to fit to an email address. Now, of course, there's a million more things you could do. Segment allocation, stratification, logic, branching, even put specific programs in there. And of course, put choice experiments, but we're not going to do that today. So let's say we're generally happy with it. Let's clean it up a bit by removing this final page, and let's preview it. So this preview screen lets you see what your survey will look like. It's identical to what your respondents will see, with the sole exception that you have an additional navigation bar up the top that allows you to jump between pages without having to submit answers. So it's very useful if you've got a very large survey, let's say 50-page survey, and you want to just look at certain pages. This preview screen can also be shared with your collaborators, but it won't collect any data. So looking at this preview, we're generally happy with it, but we might just change the title and put a logo in there. And you can do that on the layout screen, which is here. So there's a lot of things you can do to alter the look and feel. You can force it to be landscape or portrait on mobile, but we're just going to upload a logo and put a title and make the background white. Have a quick look. Pretty happy with it. Now, before we go on to live data collection, I'll just skim over the other screens that may be of interest to you. There's the experiment screen here, and this allows you to create conjoint and choice experiments for inclusion to your study. We're not going to talk about this now. There's a whole nother video on that. The dictionary screen here provides a summary of all the data collection elements in your survey and any levels. This is really useful to be able to see what the names you're using if you want to do some more advanced coding or branching. And it shows you the way that the data will appear in the data output with one row per independent variable. So most data elements will produce one data item, but some, such as matrix questions here, will produce one data column for each question asked. And finally, we have the assets screen. And this is where we manage any digital assets that we want to include in the survey. It's usually going to be images, but it may also be PDFs in the case of consent forms, or it could be videos, JavaScript code, or style sheets. So that's the editing done for now. Let's say we're happy with this survey and we now want to start collecting data. Now we move to the deployment screens. The first screen is the publish screen, and this is really the gateway screen to getting your current survey live. When you publish, a copy is made of your current working edits, and this is put live with a version number starting at 1. This is really important for management later on. If you, for example, make small changes to your survey, but you want to continue with data collection and you want the data to be all merged, or if you're running a series of tests and you want to clear the data out and start fresh, every new publish is a new version. There's another screen I'll go to in a second where you can see what those the effects of those publish actions are. Next, we have the activity screen, and on this screen you can see the summary of completion statistics for the survey so far. So as nobody has started this survey, it's obviously everything is 0 here. And when respondents come in, you'll be able to see who's live, who's been screened out, and the total completes. If you have a more complex stratification with quotas for different segments, you'll be able to see each of those here as well. At the bottom here, we have some read-only links that will help you manage your data collection. We have one for clients and one for panel partners that you might be using to help them see how they're doing and for them to manage their recruitment themselves. Now, of course, the survey needs to get out live, and for that you will need an invitation link that you'll use in either an email, outbound campaign, or post on your site, or perhaps give it to a panel provider. You can create multiple links on this site. This is really useful if you want to track and manage multiple sources. Perhaps you've got a LinkedIn campaign, a Facebook campaign, and so on. These links allow you to dictate where people go after they've finished. And this is, of course, critical if you want to use panels because you need to redirect back to their completion site. This is the simulation screen. This is extremely useful for testing out your whole survey before you go to field and probably deserves a video of its own. What this screen lets you do is to generate bot respondents to your survey. These bots run through your survey just like a respondent. They scan the page, they look for active elements, fill out fields, and press the next button. From a data collection perspective, they are identical to real respondents. The only difference is that their IP addresses are all the same and they give random answers. But in all other ways, they will actually be interacting with the survey. So if there are any logic errors or even any technical errors with code you've put in there, those bots will find them. They also will generate data so you can see what the data will look like, which is really useful to find any holes and even to prepare your scripts. Finally, here we have the history screen. This is a log of all the versions you've published so far and an indication of whether they're actively included in the current view of what data collection is. You can turn these on and off as you like, and often the first versions will be test data as you're testing this with a small group of people before you go live. So now we move to the results and data screens. Once you've collected your data, you'll want to look at it, download it, maybe even do some analysis. Of course, you can do this at any time, even during the data collection. So firstly, downloading the data is simply a matter of going to the data screens and downloading it in the format you want, CSV or Excel, and of course the data dictionaries are included with these downloads. There's also a frequency and a crosstabs screen that lets you do a quick analysis without having to download all the data and fire up your SAS or Stata or whatever you're using. You can do a more permanent version of these and take a snapshot of these analysis as reports that you can then share with HTML links. Finally, here we have the model screen, but really that's for another video, as this is what you use if you've done choice experiments, which of course we haven't.